paid for it all. But after every fee system, there's a big layoff until they started another. And that's when I went over to UPA. Even though a lot of people were out of work, I got on because I had Disney training and I didn't cost much money.
We'll take a look at UPA 1959. Yes, the Naked Ladies at Art School. And I noticed that was the two movies, both movies, it's like, why aren't you following the model?
Yeah. There's a couple of repeats here. This is a project, Hanna and Barbera documentary for about 6 years. And a lot of what you see are different versions that I tried, and sometimes you see the same gags repeated. But that's an ongoing project, and we'll hear more about that, I hope, eventually.
Yes, yeah, we'll show a clip. And so, yeah, we'll get back to Hanna-Barbera, the studios, in a bit, but first, I'd like to talk about you at Hanna-Barbera. And so we've got, this is a write-up.
Oh, yeah, I was 25 years old.
And already you were at Hanna-Barbera working on the Jetsons.
This is one of my storyboards.
Yeah.
Everybody could draw, and I said earlier, everybody could draw, and the animators could go right through these setups. You can see the expressions on the characters so that you know exactly how they feel, and the actors added even more to it. So that's the way we proceeded.
Yeah. And we've got, the next one is actually Androcles and the Lion storyboards, and you just maybe let that play through silently. You can talk a bit about.
Okay, I can talk about it as we're going along.
Yeah.
This is from a play by George Bernard Shaw, and it's only the introduction of this famous lion. And here is Androcles with his wife. She's on him. I haven't seen one lion yet. Don't be so disappointed. Oh, well, you can read it. It's these lines came pretty much from Bernard Shaw. I just brought them up to your contemporary kind of attitude, I guess. So if you don't know the story of Androcles and the Lion, does anyone know? Well, it was this Androcles he finds this lion who has a thorn in its foot and it's screaming loud, and he's very good and cozy with pets. She complains to him a lot about that. Now she's afraid of the lion, and she runs off because she heard him roar. And there he is, and the police is there frightened. She faints. And then the lion roars, and he tells the lion, "Don't come after my wife." Then he sees the lion has a thorn in his paw. So he very carefully pulls it up. And then the lion is hollering. He didn't get it up the first time. He roars at him. And finally, one last tug, it pops up. The lion is so happy. And his wife is watching, and he sees the two of them. And so what happens is, Androcles was a persecuted Christian in Rome, and they eventually get Androcles, and he is in the arena with all these lions, and who shows up but his friend the lion. All the other ones are going to tear everything out of the humans that are being sacrificed. So that's pretty much the story. This is only the prelude.
Okay. And let's see, some model sheets going to the Jetsons. You were there was something about Astro that made a difference in terms of the Jetsons.
Astro was first. I wrote the first Astro about him being picked up by Elroy. It was a stray dog, and Elroy dragged him home. And the family didn't want another dog, but Elroy was so crazy about it, they actually didn't have a dog. But it turns out the owner of this dog was a very wealthy man, and he put out an ad for the return of his dog. And the Jetsons found out about it, and they thought it was a great idea to get rid of this dog. So he got sent back to the wealthy owner, who had a hell of a time with Astro, and he couldn't handle him at all, and he wound up sending him back to the Jetsons. So, and he lived there apparently ever very far distant future.
And Astro made a difference in the popularity of the Jetsons show, didn't it?
Yeah, he was really popular. I wish we had done more Jetsons. There were only 27 original ones. And they ran for 2 years, but they had 27 episodes. The new Jetsons were made 20 years later. Try that with live action actors. And they were a big disappointment. And if you ever look at it, you can see about what I'm talking about. The original was so superior.
Okay, now, this is a topical one.
Snagglepuss.
Yeah. Has anybody heard the recent news that came out last week about Snagglepuss? What was?
Yeah, there's a new comic coming out, and he's been updated.
Yeah.
How shall I
Excellent.
put it?
Mike would have loved that. Oh, I think he wouldn't though. He was sort of Mike Maltese. He invented Snagglepuss. He wrote every single one of them. And he was a funny man. He wrote all the Pepe Le Pews at Warner Brothers. And this character, he used Burt Law's voice, if you might remember Burt Law from The Wizard of Oz, of course. So that was Mike's, and we did a lot of those rip-offs of the voices that already existed. The next one, which I had a lot to do with.
Yeah, just for those people who didn't hear the whole story about Snagglepuss. Snagglepuss is one of the Hanna-Barbera characters that DC Comics is resurrecting. There's also the Jetsons and Top Cat and various others, but Snagglepuss was getting all the attention because they
He was
changed him.
one of 3 short cartoons that made the Kurt McGraw show.
Right.
It was Snagglepuss, Quick Draw, and Pixie and Dixie. They were 2 mice being chased by a cat. That's another thing from MGM. And Hokey Wolf had Phil Silver's voice. And that was done by, who's the big cartoon voice? Dawes Butler. Yeah, he did.
No way.
Dawes
Butler.
Dawes Butler, yes.
Yeah, Dawes Butler, right. And Dawes did both of these, and he did so many voices. And unlike Mel Blanc, you couldn't tell his voices from one another. Mel could do a lot of voices, but you could always hear Mel in the background. Not so with Dawes. Every voice was indistinguishably distinct from the other. So.
Well, and so when you buy the comic book, you'll find out that Snagglepuss is now a gay Southern playwright in the manner of Tennessee Williams. So I guess carrying on the Hanna-Barbera tradition of adopting from
That
other
kind
aspects of
of stuff
culture.
never got on the street. Maybe outside.
Right. Okay. So yes, you were saying Hokey Wolf.
Hokey Wolf was patterned after the Phil Silver show, just as the Honeymooners were copied from, I should say the Flintstones were copied from the Flintstones. Nothing is real except, I should say, nothing is new except that which had been forgotten.
Okay. And let's see, this one here, does this relate to what you were talking about, the numbers a little while ago?
Yeah, those are the coloring numbers for all those cats. I had a color perception problem, I still have it. And actually, I spent one semester at Art Center when it was over in Los Angeles. And
Third Street, yeah.
I was there for about a month. But at the same time, I was at Disney trying to, learning to draw animated characters, and it was all pencil work. But at Art Center, they hit me right away with colors and coordinating them and understanding them. And with my deficiency, I was wasting my time. So I went to Disney and continued being trained there. It was the best animation training on the planet.
Yeah, like Floyd Norman, leaving Art Center to go on to
Right.
Disney. Here we go. And yeah, we've the next one coming up, Madeline, was one that I remember. It was more and I've actually got like an intro clip of it. We did about a half dozen of the Madeline cartoons, and this one appealed to me. This one I remember because my love for UPA knows no bounds, and this one really had that mid-century feel for, if you're not familiar with UPA Studios, you should definitely be. So this coming up is like basically like an intro to,
Right.
To Madeline. And your storyboard for Madeline.
In an old house in Paris that was covered with vines, lived 12 little girls in 2 straight lines. They left the house at 9:30 in 2 straight lines. It rained or shine.
These owns doors?
The smallest one was Madeline. On a windy day in early fall, Miss Clavell said,
Let us not go outside at all.
Oh, we cannot stay inside. Single Miss Clavell?
but the girls were set to go to the zoo, so they wrapped up in scarves, red, green, and blue, and headed down the avenue. The wind was blowing everywhere. It blew them to the polar bear. And to the tiger turning blue. Madeline could only say,
Achoo! Tout sweet, my darlings. We must go on.
Yeah, so it's derived from, isn't it charming? It's just derived from the books, which were also done in rhyme. It's like the cartoons were as well. And it was that Edward Everett Horton doing the voiceover?
I know,
Yeah,
I was doing this stuff freelance, and we had to draw differently for every board. I had to adapt to their style here, and when we did like Looney Tunes, I had to draw like the Warner Brothers characters, and it was that way on a lot of this freelance stuff. You had to know how to draw many different ways.
Yeah, and here's a live action film storyboard.
Oh, yeah, this is Back to the Future. See, this is what live action writers can't do very well. It's just too visual. You can see the whole gags, how they would and how they're planned and sort of timed up. Back to the Future.
Okay, and, okay, so back to Hanna-Barbera, and let's see, maybe we can save that one for a bit, because I'd like to, like to hear you talk some more, so we can jump over that. So here we have Edward Hopper Goes cartoony. And so, yeah, you already talked a bit about the different characters, Hanna-Barbera, and these couple of clips kind of seem to show their personality.
Yeah, all this, Bill Hanna and Joel. Joel has these awards to himself.
And, yeah, somebody had a temper. Yeah. Were you ever the recipient of a fallout from that temper? That looks fierce. No?
First annual Joe Barbera Award.
And here's the,
Oh, this is,
the crew.
yeah. Wow. I couldn't, Bob Foxbuller is up there. Dick Dickens back. Doug Wiley, everyone. Ewo Takamuro. Foster, Mark Maltese, Charlie Shows, Harry Flynn, and on and on.
Yeah, where were you there?
Yeah,
Which one?
where am I? Right there, third row, middle picture. That's a drawing by Jerry Eisenberg.
Okay, and so here's here's a model sheet that you.
There's no frill character design, rich and famous facial expression, Hollywood high collar, and a personal reminder. Joe had it, all his clothes were monogrammed. And Bill had workplace attire, and Joe had high style sportswear.
Did they ever come across these cartoons and take offense?
Yeah, they were kind of torn. They don't like being insulted, but they enjoyed good humor.
Ah. And you mentioned the cars, and here's a graphic of that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, and here's another representative
Yes.
here you did, Bill.
This is Bill Hanna in a good mood.
Okay. And yeah, everybody was getting into the act. These are like a mixture of various people working with you at the studio. This one's yours. This one's yours. Talking about layouts. Layouts. Okay. And
You just asked me about this.
yes. Okay. Warren and Don. And so, what was your experiences? What were your experiences in meetings with Joe on Story Pigeon?
I had a great relationship with Joe. He was an Italian, like me, and that can mean a lot sometimes. But he just liked what I was doing. We had a lot of fun together. He would take me up to his home in Bel Air, sit around the pool and talk about a Flintstone story and throw gags around. And we were supposed to be working, but we were having a lot of fun while working.
Yeah, yeah, and that was, you know, it was happening in the, Floyd Norman was, you know, I mean, that just seems to be part of that whole, you know,
Yeah.
LA animation studios culture
It was
at
a
the time.
great fun.
Okay, and here we have,
This is Art Leonardi, little Tweet Benedict, and Frizz Freeman. This was Frizz's birthday, and the card says, "Once more with Freeman."
yeah, could you talk a bit about Frizz?
What's that?
Could you talk a bit about Frizz?
Yeah, Frizz was the funniest guy I ever met, with the exception of Alan Darner. Frizz came out to Hollywood from Kansas City. Frizz and Walt were great friends back in Kansas City, and they both worked on commercials that would run inside movie theaters. They made little shorts for that. And when Walt came out to open a studio in Los Angeles, Frizz stayed back there, but they were both great actors. Frizz was a great artist, Walt wasn't. And he brought Frizz out to Los Angeles, and he met him at the train station, and they went to work together. But Frizz was a pretty feisty guy, and it was not just a few times that he got into it with Walt. And he was fired several times, and then Walt had to call him back because he was the only guy to cover what they were working on. But eventually, Frizz tells me this story that he finally was. He went to Walt and told him he was sick and wouldn't be in that day. But he really wanted to go see this movie. I think it was Wings or some early film. And so we got on one of those buses that went down Wilshire Boulevard, and on the top, people were outside and they could see around. And as they're going to the theater in the bus, who pulls up but Walt in his convertible and sees Frizz up on top and fired her on the spot. So that was the last time he saw Walt, and then he went over to MGM where he worked with Bill and Joe before going to Warner Brothers and working there. So that's some of my Frizz stories. There's lots.
Yeah, and to do further research, it's F-R-I-Z, the first name. Oh, and there's the if that box of famous Amos isn't empty, we can start going around again, yes? Okay, so, and right here we have your office.
Yeah, there's my office. And, on the wall is Art Scott, and above him is Corny Cole. Next to him is Alex Lovey. That's me beneath him. And the model sheet is Sandy Sandifer, and that little note is "See Me, J." He would always do these notes around at Museum. Then there's that drawing of Bill and Joe and Milt Sellers, Lawrence Smitty. The Sellers on Columbia Boulevard had a wasn't a restaurant, but they prepared food there for the other 2 or 3 Minnesota's restaurants. But they opened a sandwich bar because everybody from Hanna-Barbera was coming over there. So that's what that little note is on top. And there's a phone in the hallway. At first, that was the only phone around. And so you had it, if you got a call, you had to go there and talk, and everybody would hear everything she was saying. But we got phones. And this is Warren Foster. He wrote all the Yogi Bears. He was a really funny writer. And he and Mike and I were the writing team for years there. These guys were in the mid-50s, and I was 23 years old. So they saw me, and I really know around this year. And then Sidney and my longtime friend Jerry Eisenberg, we both started at Hanna-Barbera in 1960. And Jerry is still around, and he's been helping me with my documentary.
Oh, and there's.
Jerry did this one.
Okay, now here's the.
Here's Jerry, and Lotzi, Mark Lotzi, and Monty. They were a background too. See the whole background is there. No digital painting. Couple of Jerry's. Here's Jerry by Ewald Takamoto. Ewald was a great artist. He draw vividly. See, look at all the few lines here. You get all that into a character. Ewald was very small, Jerry was very tall and round.
And here's that style guy that was on your wall.
Yeah, Arts guy, he came over from DC. He was really an interesting man. He was very erudite. He knew so much about so many things. He was interested in everything that you can imagine. He was a great person to visit, chat with.
And thrifty with his 60 bags.
Yeah. There's Art and Alex Lowy. They were rivals.
Yeah, backhanded compliment.
Right. Here's Art conducting a tour of the studio. This is the drawing by Ewald Takamoto. He's Star of David and Yogi Bear and some sushi and a sake there.
Nippon Yogi.
Yeah, Yogi's on the wall there. But the drawings are so slick. This is a rough one of the Ewald. Here's Willie
Yeah,
Eaton.
we could, yeah. Is that, so back then, that kind of caricatures didn't really raise any
Oh,
eyebrows.
yeah. But these were gags. They were,
Right.
if we did them on each other, they would never think it
Sure.
was a progress.
Yeah, it was really, internal, and people knew where they were coming from, right, yeah.
Willie went back to Disney actors spending a number of years at Hanna-Barbera working on the Flintstones and Jetsons.
And, yeah, Willie's still around. I see
Yeah.
him at comic conventions. He's
Yeah.
such a wonderful guy.
Woody and I and Jerry Eisenberg have done several talks and we built ourselves the three tuners.
Hmm. Okay, this looks like.
Here it is.
This looks like there's a story here. Inside jokes.
You know, back then you could walk around the studio with a camera, movie camera or still camera, and nobody cared. There was zero security. This is our best basketball team as a match. The only real ones were Jerry and I, but these are all short people at the studio. So we thought it would make an interesting basketball game. Here is Art Scott, myself, Mike Maltese, and Dan Gordon.
With the writing team, yes?
Right, they were three writers, Art, me, and Mike, and Dan was a character designer. He came from Fleischer Studios. See if you can follow this guy.
So this is a writer's joke.
Yeah.
Good. And the voice actors
Right.
in the recording studio. Yeah.
Recording at Flintstone.
Right. Yeah. The legendary Mel Blanc and B. Benaderet.
Yeah, Gene Vanderpyle and Joe Barbera.
Yeah. And you also also on the team was June Foray. You know, if anybody knows her, you know, she's the voice of Rocky with Rocky and Bullwinkle. You know, she's one of the greatest. Yeah.
Not a
Yeah,
great
just-
help, but she's still
Yeah.
cranking.
And yeah, she's another just wonderful person, just really delightful. Now, let's see, there's a film coming up that I wanted to show you. Instead of just a clip, we're going to do. We're going to spend some time on this because, and this is bouncing off of the voice actor idea, because this particular cartoon, the voice is Jonathan Winters. I used the one with a little introduction about it, and so you can just like show it. I hope everybody knows who Jonathan. Anyway, if you Mork and Mindy. Anyway, in the 50s, you know, this fabulous creative genius of a comedian. Anyway, so I'm just going to roll this with a little intro.
le salaud. Les crunchs, les chickens, les salauds, les couchers, les whiplash des familles, les piles de la mort. Barney, you fathead. That's the third aircraft you busted up this month. You've got the entire squadron on assigned rest. Sorry, Captain, I need a volunteer.
Oh, no. I got to be in the air where the action is. Blasting them Huns with my Beckers.
Be cool, Barney. I can't have that kind of violent talk in front of my teeny bopping daughter's picture. Oh, yeah. I'm hip. Your assignment is to fly over enemy lines, land and rescue the captured French air ace, Francois Defeat. He's being interrogated. German lieutenant. Here are your sealed orders in detail.
Oh, beautiful, baby. I'm ready. Let's go. How about my camel, Corporal Lackluster?
All set, Lieutenant. Hey, you got a minute. I'd like to show you my latest drone.
Bug me, man.
But you can't miss with this. It's an air-to-air missile, complete with printed instructions.
You're set. Now back off. Contact. Whoa, boy. Whoa.
Straighten up and fire out.
That's it. Now, let's see what these orders say. Beware of enemy resistance. These unfortunate security leaks.
Hey, that security leak is a gusher. Not food. Yankee, you dare to challenge Baron von Rippemont? Was Scheidert wie der Teufel in der Haus, wie ein Schauder Smoke, which means your brother is a balloon. Dinge im Außen, Dinge bekannten Stündbürner. Out! Teilebatzen, Teils, Döllen auf Eiden, Frünen, Stein, Steffenbassen.
That's ferocious. Man, I got a groovy finish. It's you, clown.
Oh, man, I got him uptight now. He's reeling. Them French chicks is gonna blow their minds when I stop in wearing that Medal of Honor.
He's getting to me now.
Where's that Lackluster's rocket?
I'm taking that Kraut boy with me. It says, simply light fuse, and it's supposed to go.
That's it. That's a stick.
Oh, man, that Lackluster is gonna hear from me.
We're gonna have some kind of out-of-sight court-martial. This is it, man. Old Francois in there, I know. Boy, them Huns is really putting him through his paces. I'll just tear in there and start busting them up. All right, this is a raid. Drop everything. You're... Now, just a lint-picking minute.
You will rescue me from this foreign masher, no?
No way, ma'am. I come to rescue that captured Mr. Defeat.
But he's not captured. He surrendered to be with me.
Funny you look a lot like your brother.
Sorry, Francois, but this is a war, not a love-in. Orders is orders. Nothing personal.
Dankeschön, mein friend. How can I ever thank you?
I don't mention it. So long, and I'm sorry about this war. It's so noisy, ain't it?
Auf Wiedersehen.
Storm, I'll have your barge for this, you bubble-headed clown.
What did I do, Captain? I brought home that French fella, didn't I?
That's just the trouble. You let that crazy Frenchman loose on this field. Look out this window up in the sky.
Who's that with him?
My innocent teeny-bopping daughter. That's who.
Oh, my God. I sure hate to go through this again.
Yes, my pussycat. If you kiss like this at 5,000 feet, what it must be like on the ground. Fantastic.
Lackluster in his crummy rockets, my wheels falling off, my goggles all full of grease, my machine gun is bent. I sure wish I was back in Apple Creek fishing. I wish I was back here.
Oh, good cartoon, okay. Yeah, there was Snoopy and the Red Baron grows up sort of thing. And, yeah, you know, some of how you set the scenes, it's like, you know, you leave it to the viewer's imagination to, rather than show the, you know, the fall into the pigsty, you know,
Right.
that sort of thing, because, you know, it wouldn't have been as funny if you had actually seen it.
Right, and it's also cheaper to do it that way.
Well, there's that.
Off-screen action.
Yeah, this is a good point to start asking for questions. Does anyone have any comments, thoughts about what we've seen so far? Yes?
Well, it came to Astro, why was a Great Dane chosen as, maybe rather than say some other dog, why a Great Dane for Astro?
Can you say that again?
Why a Great Dane for Astro, as opposed to another dog?
Why,
Yeah, why a Great Dane?
I didn't design him. It was Gene Hazelton who designed Astro. But he is kind of a collaborative way of making film. Everybody contributed. It's not like one artist came up with a perfectly finished design of the character. Joe would put something in it, and several other artists would have some input, and then it finally wound up as Astro when I got it. And so I just had to write a story. Yes, sir.
And
I saw that the writing credit on the last piece was you and Jonathan Winters. What was it like collaborating with him?
yes. Oh, let's hear
It was a little bit crazy. I had written the script, and by the time we got to recording it, Jonathan was everything all over the place, and my original script was pretty much gone. But he was funny all the way through it. I don't know how he can be so funny for so long. Never had a serious moment. But there were times when he would settle down. At least with me, we had a pretty good relationship. And I've been over to his house, and there's all those hats on the shelf, and he was a pretty good painter. He did a lot of paintings. But he's gone on to, so any other question? Okay.
Comments, thoughts?
In the previous short, one of the names that popped up was Ken Spears. Was that Ruby Spears later
Yes,
on?
it is.
Did you work with them in the 90s?
Yeah, not in the 90s. I worked with them in the 60s.
Okay.
They were film editors then,
Mhm.
and they didn't start running until after I was gone. But I knew him well. We all knew each other pretty well because his small studio, maybe 150 people.
Did you ever work for like Filmation, or did you see them as like a rival studio? Or?
No, not at all. Filmation was formed by Lou Scheimer and my half-brother, Hal Sullivan. Hal had worked at Disney. In fact, he's the one that got me into being tested. No, I didn't work at Filmation at all. Yes, sir.
How much oversight was there? Was there like a committee that allowed you to be funding? Compared to today, there may be all kinds of groups to make sure that everybody's represented or nobody's offended. Was there a lot more freedom to make your animation and then just get it out there?
Yeah, one of the really great things about early Hanna-Barbera is it was new to television, and we were pretty free to write whatever we want. All I had to do, I would sit down with Joe, he would throw a premise, or I would have a premise, and we would talk about it, and then I would return to my room and do a rough storyboard. Then I'd bring it back to Joe, and he would go back and forth and toss some things out and put some things in, and then I went back and did a finished board, and went to recording and production, and when it went on the network TV, it was pretty much the way I had written it. There was no story editors or people from the network or advertisers that had anything to do with it. That all I had to do was please Joe, and they were cranking out these shows, and they were doing so well, and the networks actually didn't know how these films were made. They understood live action, so that helped a lot in getting it off the way we wanted it. But that too didn't last forever. But it was a period of really free, creative work. It was great. I enjoyed it so much, and there weren't a lot of people involved. And if you look at the credits at the end of Jesse's show, for instance, you'd see really short, limited credits. The brightest would be there all alone. There wasn't a whole staff of brightest cranking stuff up. We all worked individually. So that's kind of how it went.
When you worked on the Wonderful World of Color, you had when you worked on the Wonderful World of Color back in the 50s, how large was that group?
Yeah.
Was that like a group of 10 or 5, or how many people was working on Wonderful World of Color?
In that unit, there was 5 people. Me, Carl, Mathis, Sylvia, can't tell all the names what that right now, but there were 5 of us in there. 3 animators and 2 assistants. I was one of the assistants, but I actually was just got out of the apprenticeship doing in-betweens, and now I was doing breakdowns, which is the next step before becoming an assistant. But that was a lot of fun. I got to go down to the board flipped through all these great drawings from shorts and the feature films. They were all kept down there in great order, and we would actually trace some of the drawings and adapt them to the TV show.
To probably wrap it up a bit, but I did want to ask one last thing, and that was about the documentary, which, due to time, probably best that, we advise them to go check it out on YouTube. But if you could just, talk a little about that before we wrap, your Hanna-Barbera documentary.
Okay, it's called Fast Times at Hanna-Barbera, 1960 to 1967. Jerry Eisenberg and myself, we would go around the studio shooting film and still pictures. There was no security. So we have a lot of film and still pictures of people working at Hanna-Barbera in the 60s, inside studio stuff. We have a lot of still photos and some of the footage we have seen from those early days. What was the question?
Well, just about, what state is the documentary in terms of like being able to be seen?
Okay, it's about 6 years old. When it began, I assembled all the footage and drawings and gags and artwork that we had put together. And I started shooting the drawings and having the film transferred, and I entered it all into Final Cut Pro software and started putting this picture together. But I didn't have much money, very little money, so I had to do it pretty much myself. I was doing a lot of character designs, those ones that Bill and Joe that you saw, and a number of other ones, which I hope to put into a short animated film as part of this documentary. I had people help me out. Old friends from Hanna-Barbera gave me help with editing and music and acting, and they all worked for free. And so they sort of had an influence on it. They had ideas and good ideas and would want to put them in. And I had to, give them some slack on that, even though I didn't like some of the stuff. It didn't fit my ideas, but I had to get the film done. And it was about 20 minutes long when I first submitted it to several film festivals, and nothing happened from that. But I got some good audience reaction, and that made it easier for me to see where I was going, what Pete could cut, and where the laughs came in, and just timing it out was part of it. So I'm still working on it, and it's looking better all the time for me. I like it. I wasn't happy about the one I had to submit to film festival. But the people I were working with, they needed some credit, and they just wanted a little recognition, so that's where it stands right now. And I'm moving on to what I feel will be the final step.
So a Google video search of Fast Times at Hanna-Barbera. we should look for the 20-minute version? That's the,
It'll have that title on it.
Yeah.
Fast Times at Hanna-Barbera on Vimeo. And, Vimeo Tony Benedict.
okay, well, thanks so much, good time. Okay, Mike, we'll take 20 minutes for my class. Come back in 20, we'll take it.